Monday, January 18th, 2020. I'm Tulio Siragusa, broadcasting from Southern California, and I'm joined by Carlos Ponce in the Cuernavaca, Mexico. Hi, Carlos. Welcome.
Hey, Tulio.
All right, so we've got another week ahead of us. Let's get it, as they say.
Yes, we
But
do.
before we do, let's recap the shows we had last week. We had two shows last week. A little slower start to the new year. That's to be expected, but we'll start picking up momentum in no time. We had two shows. The first show was with the head of strategy and data architecture at Ally Bank, as many people know it. We talked about cloud computing and data analytics, the impact that has on how you make decisions and how you best serve customers. And then we also had a show with the engineer whisperer at Xplor to Xpand, Andrea Clough, who the topic was why software engineers cannot say no. So that was an interesting topic. Very enlightening in terms of how to get to a yes jointly and remove the barriers. I thought that was very good. So let's get started. We'll recap these two shows and then announce what we got coming up this week. Carlos, which of these two shows stood out for you and why?
Well, definitely, Tulio, I gotta say, the one with Andrea. And for a number of reasons. First of all, every time we have a conversation that is not necessarily technical in nature, but more focused on the human side of engineering. And this is because, as you know, I'm not an engineer. So I like this particular topic. And so I was trying to get into, when Andrea was speaking, I was trying to get into the reasons why an engineer might or might not be saying yes or no, depending on the project or the circumstances. So that kind of intrigued me a little bit and made me curious as to the engineer's mindset or way of thinking. Let's put it that way. So I know that there might be some intricacies. We don't want to get into too much in detail into the, because we're not about psychology. But I think it's interesting, because when I interact with my fellow engineers, my fellow teammates who are engineers at Encora, and for some reason or another, we touch on the software development side. I think it's especially those who are a little bit more introverts. There, it's challenging. So, and sometimes to have someone say yes to, this is what I drew from the conversation with Andrea. When you get to a point where the engineers learn how to say yes to specific tasks, projects, methodologies, whatever, I think it's because they realize that they're doing their job well, and they're aware that their impact is so embedded into everyone's lives that they don't even notice. And when they're brilliant, when they're creative, when they're innovative, they're invisible. They're feeling mighty invisible, but it's also Andrea's work to make them realize that they're amazing. Their job, their work is amazing. So, in other words, I think all of us who might be engineering agnostic, I think we also should become aware that we should be thanking engineers for a number of reasons, because they're the ones doing the magic and all these little things that make our life easier every day. So this is one of the many reasons, Julie, why I thought the conversation with Andrea was exciting, was educational, and fun.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys missed that show, or if you've missed any of the Dojo Live shows, you can certainly go to our website at dojo.nearsoft.com and just find anything. If there's over 400 shows, you can use the search box on a particular topic or subject. I'm sure you'll find something that interests you. To go back to the conversation with Andrea, I think what was interesting is this idea that most engineers are people who like to solve problems and like to be helpful. They have a creative side of them, almost at the level of an artist. And it's sometimes people get a bad rap for always saying yes as being people pleasers, and there's definitely some issues with that. There's some people who have people pleasing problems, but
Right.
what I loved about the show is if you're the kind of person who normally says yes and then you sort of suffer through it, right? You make commitments that you couldn't make because you're just overwhelmed and you just want to please everybody. And you say yes, yes, yes. One thing that came out of the show was interesting. How do you get to a yes in collaboration with someone else? So in other words, you could say something like, I'd like to say yes to that, and I'm prone to want to say yes to that, but here's the things that I have to overcome to make that happen. So you bring the other person into the challenges you're going to face to get to a yes. And I thought that kind of uh, collaboration could be extremely useful, not just for engineers, really for all of us, right? We sometimes have opposing views, and rather than quickly just say no to something, how do we get to a yes together? And by having an active, transparent communication about what are the things that are in the way to getting to a yes. Yeah, I'd like to agree with you, Carlos, on doing that. But here's the thing that's getting in the way of that. And it could be simply like, I'm scared that if I do that, this will happen, right? So it requires incredible transparency and vulnerability to be able to collaborate to get to a yes. So if you missed that show, check it out. A lot of great points there. The other show we had was with the head of data strategy and data architecture at Ally, and how to use data analytics. And one of the things we talked about is the value of cloud computing. It used to be, go back even 10 years ago, most organizations had their own infrastructure for data, and you had to rely on communication infrastructure, data infrastructure, to gain access to that information. So sometimes the massive volumes data would drop off because the speed and the bandwidth just wasn't there. So cloud computing introduced a new way, a novel way of dealing with data because the information is accessible, right? You don't have to manage a massive network of data infrastructure and data warehouses to gain access to this data and have all kinds of tools that can mine it in a real-time fashion. You have it readily available, and the cloud computing platforms do that for you. They manage all that for you. So it's made it easier and faster to make decisions that are more timely, specifically even in consumer data decisions. So I found it very eye-opening about how there's been an emergence of data computing and data science and the use of data science. But what's really led that revolution is actually cloud computing. And the two have kind of happened in parallel fashion. And then we talked about the possibility of quantum computing and things of that nature that are evolving, the evolution of 5G and bringing data to the edge, how that could introduce another disruption in how quickly we get access to data. So if you guys missed that show, definitely check it out. It was a very interesting conversation about the various technologies that are evolving to make the use of data smarter and faster. So Carlos, we're coming up on time. We promised to do this in 10 minutes. What do we got coming up this week?
Sure, Tulio. We have two shows confirmed, one for tomorrow at noon, and this is with Inigo Lopez, the CEO of IZET Business Language Services, on the topic of paperless language school through technology. So that's the topic. And then we have a conversation on Wednesday with David Tran and Jim Coleman, the principals of XFusion, a tech support company for software as a service companies. That is right here on DojoLIVE at 12 noon, and look forward to seeing you all here.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again on Tuesday, or no, Wednesday, correct? When's the next show? Wednesday or Tuesday?
Tomorrow and
tomorrow, Tuesday.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, and Wednesday, yes.
See you back tomorrow at 12 noon, guys. Stay safe and happy Martin Luther King's Day.